Philosophers talk to our times. The anthropologists have their say. So today, in the last of this little mini-series, I'm going to weaponize Bruno Latour and the book Pandora's Hope, and tear it away from an argument I have seen that somehow Bruno Latour is an enemy of objective knowledge, a French sociologist, an expert on science and the making of scientific knowledge, in case you wondered who he was. He wrote a book 20-odd years ago, which is the one I know best, called Pandora's Hope. And we're going to go through a little bit of that argument, and then we're going to talk about why that matters to you now, today. And will carry on mattering more and more as time goes on. So, in the book Pandora's Hope, Bruno Latour explores in detail the very complicated process by which Earth, taken from the rainforest and the savanna in Brazil, becomes scientific knowledge. It doesn't fall from the sky, and it isn't collected by antidote. Rather, it is collected from a place, the place noted and numbered, the soil carefully examined, scientifically and chemically. It is then numbered and ordered, made into charts. Those charts then related back to the map and become scientific artifacts. It is the charts that travel the world, the charts that become the knowledge, the charts that relates to the numbers, that relate to the soil, that relates to the science, that relates to the sample. It is a careful construction. At each point, it is saturated with pre-existing knowledge, with a methodical, scientific process. A scientific process that is not groupthink. By the way, just a quick aside, if anybody ever says the word groupthink to you, can you point out it's not good grammar and pull their nose from me? Groupthink does exist in the sense that we could all emote the same thing and believe because we emote. But as Spinoza will remind you, you might just agree, it might just be true, it might just be the best way to do this. And that is what infuses scientific artifacts. Be they Aristotle sorting out the actual world of octopuses in a lagoon 2,500 years ago in northern Macedonia, and separating the legend of them having no sex from the actual truth. Whether it is that then, or my current mild obsession, the James Webb Space Telescope, peering back into the past, going back further than you're meant to go back. For you see, in case you don't know, the James Webb Space Telescope is on the verge of disproving the myth of origin. The Big Bang, which was invented by some Catholic theologian and astrophysicist to explain the expansion of the universe into time and space. The physics up to this point had all appeared to suggest that there was a moment before time itself began, within which our observable and unobservable, our lived universe of space and time came into existence, a point then from which it has always been expanding. And according to those theories, galaxies evolve at a certain point in that expansion. And what the James Webb Space Telescope has actually found is that it can find traces of galaxies that are too old, some 1 billion years after the universe was alleged to be created, but some only a few million years. There is no known physics that can do this. My point is that these galaxies, are being carefully researched. They don't exist as galaxies that you can see, but mere smears of ultraviolet light. Infrared light, it's not ultraviolet, it's infrared. Infrared light, that is all that's left of the light that was broadcast 13 billion years ago or more. So, to prove that they are galaxies is no easy matter. The creation of a scientific artifact takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of maths, a lot of careful examination, a lot of putting it into existing theories, checking it against models, making sure that it isn't an error. Scientific artifacts might be social constructions, but as I said, Spinoza would remind you, all common notions are social. Truth is social, because it demands people all agree. That is its point. So they might be social constructions, but they work according to elaborate rules. They are, if you like, the exact opposite of the anecdote. An anecdote, this happened to me, that happened to me. Exact opposite then of a TED talk. Because in actual science, the making of artifacts is difficult, not obvious, carefully constructed, takes months, can take years. And only once the artifacts are constructed, if you like, I would probably call them the moments of science, can you start to theorize at all. Contrast that then with rumour, with anecdote, with elaborate statistical proofs that aren't really constructing an artifact, that aren't actually saying anything, that aren't making anything. All of which arguments can appear convincing by those agents of pseudoscience, the would-be denyists of things like vaccination. They can make an argument that if you don't know what a scientific artifact looks like, will seem so real, so truthful, so palpable. But that doesn't make it science. It doesn't make it anything valuable. Artifacts take time, take care, are difficult to make, and are social in their construction. Anyone just doing the research in a single institute or a single person, they're a liar. It is the very sociology of science that gives it its truth. And only once these artifacts are created can scientific theories spin out. Now, these scientific theories are misplaced if they're understood as being like stories. Oh no, they're not. A great scientific theory, the archetypal scientific theory, is some sort of formula. It is then a way of understanding how if you do this, that follows, or you do that, this follows. It's not a narrative, not a one-off event. This happened, then that happened, then that happened. Oh no, it's more like a temporal junction box that allows you to navigate lots of different destinies. And this is then the next element of science. To understand it as if it was a story, as if it could be contained in a narrative, is to misunderstand the very commonality of a common notion. A common notion is a temporal junction box. And in making the common notion also, notice what matters. What matters really is elegance. Theories win out because they can elegantly articulate all the artifacts one against the other. You could say bind them together in a narrative, but it's less a narrative and more a net. More a way of bringing them all in, making them make sense, allowing you to move on, to open up other worlds, other experimentation. It is that has many narratives then, many stories, caught in a single formula. More than that, a formula, unlike a story, defines the next set of problems. So the models of physics have defined dark matter and dark energy. And if you can't find either, the theory has to founder. It then creates whole new quests, whole new stories. Oh, stories can do that. A story can always lead to another story, but not to a story that if it's found, if its solution is got, makes the first story simply wrong. Great scientific truths then and theories create new problems and new limitations, new points the entire theory could founder at. If only you can find an artifact that somehow disproves it. Science then might be sociological in the sense that it is a social activity. Of course it is. Truth is social. As Spinoza would say, truth is its own standard. How could it be anything other than social? But that doesn't make it not true. On the contrary, the very elaboration of scientific artifacts, the very difficulty of their construction, the very shared nature of that construction is their truth, is what makes them different from stories or tales or what your mate said down in the pub, or what AI is feeding you an endless pap on the internet. And in a world then, where how you demonstrate what is true and what is false is going to become increasingly under strain as AI blends lies and things it's made up with things it's found on the internet and feeds you in a constant stream through your left ear, it's going to matter to you. You need to weaponize your epistemology to have a hope of remaining who you are.